Hello everyone, and it's good to see you again. So, we are doing these video recordings for you to follow along with. They're kind of nice, because then you get to pause where you need to and then keep going as a class or individually, depending on how you're doing it. So, these videos are in replacement of our live Zoom meetings because I'm still kind of on maternity leave because I just had my baby not too long ago. So, all right, today what we're going to do is we are going to learn about vanishing points and we're going to make our own aquarium. Okay, so a vanishing point is what we have here. So you can see that I have this aquarium, right? It's like there's glass with the frame, and down here we have the hallway, and it eventually gets so far away that our sight of it vanishes. Okay, so what we're going to need for this project is a white piece of paper. Excuse me. You guys will also want a pencil with an eraser. Okay, a ruler is important to have. And then I like to use some kind of black drawing utensils. So black marker, black pen, and then coloring utensils. Alright, this one I just use crayons. If you want, you could use other things like oil pastels, markers, colored pencils. Colored pencils just take a while longer to color in like all of that blue space that we're going to be having. So I would recommend probably crayons or oil pastels personally. Also because when we go in and we do the black marker first, if it's still wet and then we color in with our like colored markers, sometimes the black can bleed into it. So you could definitely use markers, but I would recommend crayons or oil pastels, and that's why. All right, so it's gonna drive me crazy. It's okay. All right. So what we're going to start out with is our pencil with an eraser and a ruler. Okay. And what we're going to do is we are going to map out an X on our paper. All right. And you can see that down in the bottom corners, it lines up with that corner. It's kind of hard because like your standard ruler doesn't go all the way across these papers, is what I came to realize. So just kind of like guesstimate and eye it and be like, I think that goes about there. You could always start doing the line and then take it over. If it's like way off, like down here or up here, then you might want to redo it, but it shouldn't be. So even if it doesn't like go right to the edge, it's okay. It won't matter. Okay. So I'm going to go in and I'm realizing now that holding my board and the ruler and drawing with the pencil is going to be a little bit more difficult than I had anticipated. So wish me luck. Okay. So I'm going to say that I think bottom corner looks about there. Okay. If I could stop accidentally sliding it around. There we go. Let's see. So what I would say for you guys is that you're going to want to try and do these all in pencil first. I'm doing it in pencil so see, I started, oh man, if you can see it, I started doing it and it was a bit more off than I thought it would be, so it was going to come like down here. So then I just did another line until it met up with this one. So that extra line, I could just erase it. It doesn't have to be perfect, but if it's super off, then you could always just fix it that way. Okay. I gotta do the other one like this. I can't seem to do it like that. So we're going to do from corner to corner diagonally and end up with an X. Alright, so I'm going to do this guy. And, whoops. That was a bit off. So instead what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure the bottom of my ruler still lines up with that first line I started. And bring the top of the ruler up to that corner. And I'm going to fix my line. So you can see, hopefully, where I started. And then I realized that this one was going to be like down here. So then I just fixed it and had it merge with this one. And that extra part, we can just erase. So I'm going to go over this with marker because my camera on my laptop doesn't pick up pencil very well, as you guys can tell. I want to make sure you can see what I'm doing. So I'm going to jump right into using my marker, but keep going with your pencils because you can't erase marker. So if you have any mistakes, it's a lot easier to fix. Okay, so here I have my X, as you can see. Same this way. If you want, you can turn it and you could do it this way for like a different angle. It's totally up to you. But I'm going to have mine be landscape instead of portrait. Next, what we're going to do is we're going to go in and we are going to map the frame. And then we will do the floor. And then I like to color in or decorate the floor. Then, you know, that way I remember that one is floor and that's not going to be part of my like ocean or aquarium. And then in the other triangles, not squares, and the other 3/4 I add in my sea creatures. Alright, so I like to take my ruler, just the standard ruler, and I'm going to use my ruler. I have to keep this over here so that I can show you while I do it because I can't hold it close. So hopefully you guys can see the width of my ruler from the outside of the paper to right in here. I'm going to use that to figure out how far apart I want my lines to be so they could be the same on both sides. Alright, so I'm going to have it, it's not going to come up past this line or down past that line. Right, so it's going to stop, but I'm going to do that again, so the width between that line and my next one, and again, and one more time. There will be a tiny little triangle right in here. Okay, you can hardly even see it. It's really teeny tiny right in there. I'm going to do the same thing on this side. It's easier for me going this way. So I'm going to flip it, but you guys can do it either way. Okay. Again, keep going with your pencils for this, just in case. Especially sometimes you'll be doing your line along that side of your ruler, and your ruler will like slide, and then your line goes whoop, and you're like, no! Right, so I like to just make sure I got all of that in the way I wanted. Oh, I just did it. Oh, Miss Jenny, you jinxed yourself. It's okay, I'll just make that line a little thicker. Don't do what I'm doing, holding it up here. That's when it starts to pivot, right? So if you're drawing it, try and do it like centered. See how my thumb is more centered rather than up there. Rookie move, Miss Jenny. Rookie move. Okay. So now I have those lines going down the side of the hallway on the walls. Same width apart. But when you have a vanishing point, to add in that perspective, as things move further away from you, they start to appear smaller, right? So if you're looking down the sidewalk, it seems like the sidewalk is getting skinnier. The lines for the cement blocks seem to get closer and closer and closer together. The trees on the sides are further apart, and then they start to like look more bunched up on the sides towards the end of the sidewalk because our perception of it moving away from us makes it look smaller and closer together. Okay, so what I'm going to do is to give this that look, I'm going to go in and I'm going to split this one in half. You don't have to like measure it exactly. It doesn't have to be perfect. I just like to eye it and be like, that's about half. So I'm going to do a line there. And a line over here, right? That way it looks like they're getting a little bit closer together down towards the end. If you want to, you could even do that like little half and half again to get it like tighter and tighter together. I think I'm just going to leave it like that. I think that drove the point home well enough. Okay, so for the ceiling, the top part of the aquarium, you can choose to either have that frame that holds the glass pieces together. You can have it go straight across and just use your ruler to connect these top edges. Or if you want to, you can have a slight curve, right? What I did was I took my pencil and I did it going straight across first so I could figure out like that baseline. And then from there, I just added in a little bit of a curve and then erased the straight line, if that makes any sense. I'm going to try and freehand mine. Wish me luck. Okay, so curve, curve, curve. Curve. And curve. Mine kind of went off the top of the page. That's okay. Alright. That makes the ceiling look more rounded instead of like just straight across. Okay. So we have our walls, our ceiling. Now we're going to talk about our floor. So for the floor, I like to have lines that come out from our vanishing point, that center of our X. And then as they come down, they're going to be wider and wider at the bottom. You see how wide that is, and then it gets skinnier and skinnier. So the easiest way I found to do that was to take my ruler and cut this bottom triangle in half, going straight down, like so. Okay, and then from there, if you want, you can cut that in half, leave it. You could cut the halves and halves again, or you can, if you want to like eye it and do two in there, you could, but they might be, they're probably not going to be like perfectly symmetrical, but that's okay. Okay. So I did some on that side. I'm going to go in and do some on this side. Like that. Okay. So if you want, you can leave it there. You could do lines going across horizontally as well to make it look more like tiles. Or you could alternate the lines going across and make them much longer if you wanted to look more like a hardwood floor or a wooden floor. It's up to you. But the biggest thing is if you do those lines going horizontally across, just like the support beams, we want those to be further apart up here, and then as you go up, they're going to get closer and closer and closer and closer together, so it gives that look like it's moving further away. So, for that, I went in and line go across. And for mine, I wanted more like squarish looking tiles, so I tried to do them a little shorter, right? They aren't actually squares, they're more rhombus, but if you have them longer like this, they're definitely going to look much more rectangular. So it's up to you what kind of shape you want. Okay, don't hold it on the end. Hold it in the middle so it doesn't slide around. Miss Jenny. There we go. And then I just keep doing that going up. This one's got a little bit closer. Closer. So the gaps between my lines, as you can see, are getting closer and closer together as I move up. So I'll bring that up closer so you can see what I mean. Alright, so these are further apart, and as I move up, they get much more packed in there, closer together. Okay, so we have that part. Now, before I move on to my creatures, if you want, you can color this in, especially if you're doing it black and white, because at that point I just use my marker. Right, so if you want to do a checkered pattern, I'll explain how, but you don't have to do it. You can do other things in this. Right, but let's see. I think I'm going to start on this side over here because I have this extra line that I want to try and put in a black square to kind of conceal the fact that I made a mistake. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do every other one. So I'm going to do, black, skip one, black, white, black, white, black, white. So I'm going to go in and do that on my first row. I'm going to pause this. You don't have to just watch me color. All awkward. And then I'll come back and I'll show you how we alternate them. And then once I'm done with that, we're going to talk about drawing some sea creatures. Okay, so I did my first one. As you can see, every other white, black, white, black, white, black. Alright, so now I alternate it. So right here where there was white, I'm going to do black. Alright, and this point too, if you haven't already, is a good time to go in and do black on top of your pencil lines. I like to outline my frame and my floor and all of those things that we did with the ruler with pencil, and then, or excuse me, outline it with black, and then do my sea creatures in pencil, and then outline those in black, and then color it. But that way, if I do these, then I'm not going to accidentally forget to fill in that line. I'm going to make sure all of my sea creatures are behind the lines, right? Because we want our glass to hold them away from us in the water, not in the tunnel with us. Keep those sharks out of here. Okay, so black, white next to the black. Here's white, so this one's going to be black. And we just go back and forth like that again. Alright, so this one will be black. This one. Every other, I'm doing my best to stay in those lines. This one. If you do a checkered pattern, you don't have to do black and white. You could also do other colors too, right? Eventually, my little squares are going to get like way too small to color in, so at a certain point, I just don't. Alright, I'm going to do the rest of these, and then we're going to move on to drawing some sea creatures. So another thing you could do that I almost forgot about was, in this one, I made my corner frame a lot thinner at the vanishing point, and see how it kind of got a little bit thicker at the corner. I did that to kind of hide the fact that my lines were off from the corner, because I'm a perfectionist like that. So, if life gives you lemons, you make lemonade, right? So if you want to do that, you can, but you don't necessarily have to, right? I would just go in and just like a little bit above, a little bit below, you know, kind of thicken up that line, and then you can color it in. Kind of like so. So you see how I added that in, and then I would just color in the inside of that, right? Make sure it still comes to that thinner line down in here, and then it just thickens up right in here. So I would do a little bit at a time instead of a lot, because you want it to like slowly get thicker. There we go. Okay, so I'll bring this up so you can see. Alright, so I just angled out a little bit more. And then you can fill those in with a thicker black if you would like. Okay, so I'm thinking that for the sea creature options, I'll go over a couple. I'm sure that I'm going to end up not covering something that somebody wants to do, unfortunately, because there are just too many to fit in this one video. The sea is so full of all kinds of stuff. So if I don't touch on something that you wanted to draw and you're not sure how to draw it, I apologize. You could ask your teacher to maybe pull up some pictures for reference that you guys could look at in class. Or if you're at home, then you could pause the video and, you know, go do a Google search and bring up a photo for reference. Okay, so I'm going to move this aside. Or actually, I'll just turn this around. And see if I have any. I do. I have a paper I could use the back side. Save the trees. Okay. Tape this guy on there so it doesn't wiggle around on me. And I will show you some different creatures. I will do my best to do it with my marker so you guys can see it. Let's see, I'll go this way. Okay, so most popular sea creatures. First I'll cover the ones that I did up here. Okay, so you have your fish and your dolphin, right? So with your standard fish, I'm going to try pencil. Let's take a look and see how well you can see it, because when drawing animals, I like to do shapes and then erase my extra lines. So that way you kind of get a bit more of what's needed. Let's see if I can move the light. Get this right down in here. Okay. Alright, so fish, your standard fish, you have more of that like almond shape. Yes, you can see it. Yay. Okay, for the body. And then they have their top fin, which might be big, it might be smaller, right? You could have it be like wavy on the backside, more like beta fishy. And then they have their two little fins that come down here, right? So one that connects to the front of the body, and then I do just a little one coming out from there, because that's going to be on the other side of the body, right? So for this guy, I would erase that line, and I would erase that line up there. Okay, and then just, you know, like a little dot for your eye. If you want to, you could do like a little mouth. Fish, they have those gills usually. Just do like 3 little strikes on the sides, just below, like behind the eye. And then the tail fin, those on fish are vertical, right? So they go up that way, down that way, and usually they come in and out like so, but I already started with the fancy one, so I'm going to make it wavy. And then I'm going to erase that line right on the end. Okay, so there I have a fish, and you can adjust it to make different looking fish, but that's like the standard kinds of things to include, right? And then with a dolphin, or actually, let's do this. We'll move on to sharks, right? So sharks, they're usually much thicker with their bodies. So I have it still kind of come to more of a point on the end, and then almost like a teardrop shape, but like more pointy on the bottom. Okay. So here, let me make that darker so you can see it. There we go. Okay. And their fins, they come out and curve, much more of a sharp point on the end. Usually they have another one like back here. Erase those lines so it connects to the body. Down here, same as the fish, they have their little arms. And erase the one for that one. It comes up into the body. That one's on the other side. Their tails, depending on the shark, usually they're much more like top heavy and like smaller on the bottom. Right, so the top would come up like that, and then the bottom is usually smaller. See how much smaller that one is than that one up there for a shark. And then they give it nice black eye. You could do some gills. If you want, you could have there be like an open mouth. They kind of like, it kind of like frowns and angles down. So I erase that line right there, and then you can add in all your teeth. Okay. Or you could do it like this one up here where I just had the mouth, oops. I had the mouth closed because there was a beam that went over it, and when I started doing the mouth, it just looked weird. So that one's like maybe a nurse shark. It's a little bit more friendly. It doesn't have the nurse shark spots, but that's okay. Okay, fish, shark. I'm going to need more than one paper. Now, dolphin. Okay, so something to keep in mind is when you have your fish, and usually on the fish you have the gills, and you have the vertical tail fin. Now, on sea mammals, the biggest noticeable difference when I'm like the visual difference is instead of having horizontal tails where they go up and down, they have, vertical tails, they have horizontal tails. So their fin tails are different, and usually they don't have the gills, right, because they actually breathe air, and they go up to the surface, so they have like their little blowholes. Or some of them don't have blowholes, right? Like if you have a seal, they just use their noses. They come up to breathe, but they can hold their breath for a really long time. Penguins, whales, killer whales, those have the blowholes in the horizontal tails. Now my mind has gone to, you have your walruses, seals, sea lions, those are all mammals. The sea unicorn, what is it called? Hold the phone. I gotta find out. Narwhals. Should have known that. My mind just went blank. Alright, anyway, those are mammals. Right, they have the blowholes. So, if you have something like a dolphin, that's a mammal. So they wouldn't have the gills, and the tails would be different. Okay. So dolphins, those ones, usually what I do is more of like a teardrop shape, and this would be pretty similar with like narwhals too. That more teardrop shape. Teardrop, right? Okay. And then, if you have a narwhal, then you'd add in, it's like, actually, it's not at the top like a unicorn would be. It like comes right out of their mouths a bit more. Pew! kind of like so. Still kind of more on the forehead, not like right on the end. And then you would give them their eyes and all the other fun stuff. But with a dolphin, they have those longer snouts that are more curved. Right, so it would be a bit more like so. Erase that part of my line. You could add in a line for the mouth. Give it an eye. Their fins are somewhat similar to sharks, how they like curve, but usually they're more rounded on the ends. You see how that's like kind of rounded? Sharks, I do that end pretty pointy. Typically the blowhole is in front of that back fin. So if you wanted to do like a dot up there, this actually might move back a little bit more, but that's okay. They do have their little, what are those called? Dorsals. They do have those, again, more curved and rounded rather than sharp, pointy like a shark's. Okay, so same, decently the same kind of like design, but the tail fin wouldn't be vertical. So instead it would come out more horizontal, which can be kind of hard to make it look that way. So let me think the best way to break that down into shapes. I might have to pull up a reference picture because I was having that same issue when I was doing this dolphin up here. So I just conveniently had the tail go off the page because I was like, don't remember. Yeet. Right? So pause for just a second. I'm just going to pull up a reference photo so that I don't lead you astray. Okay, so yeah, it just kind of depends on the angle that you're looking at, right? If they're like straight on from the side, you can see that this tail over here is really flat. So you could do it that way by just having it like come to basically like a point and then doing another smaller point. It can kind of look weird. Bring it closer. I think maybe this one feels so weird to me because I didn't make it long enough. I feel like that body's so maybe more like so to make it look more from the side, right? Or you could do a tail that's just like, they might be like flipping their tail and you can see a little bit more of an angle to it, right? So let me pull this guy up so you can see. So you see a little bit more on that one. This one's just like a line that goes across. Okay. So let's see. I'm gonna go in and I'll do it a bit more like that. Just like really flat so it's more at an angle. So we could still kind of get more of that dolphin feel rather than just like pointy and long at the end, without giving it that like super fanned out vertical tail fin. Okay, you know, same thing with like whales. Whales would just be like way bigger. Could give it that belly. Oh, shoot. Make it darker. Darker, Jenny, darker. Okay, so there's those two. Let me grab another piece of paper and I'll go over jellyfish, octopus. How much time are we at? Ooh. Yeah, so I'll go over jellyfish and octopus. And then if you guys want to do some other, and seaweed. If you guys want to do some other stuff, then I would recommend just pulling up some photos, taking a look, and doing your best. It doesn't have to be like super fancy. Okay, so let's see. Back at this page. Okay. Oh, there's. Hold on. Sorry. Okay. Jellyfish are super fun to draw because they're like pretty easy in my opinion. Right? So you go in as if you were doing like a circle or a balloon shape. And then I fan it out and do like a wavy bottom, like so. And then you just give them long, wavy lines that go down. Like that. Bam. Jellyfish. Okay, and then octopus. So octopus, the way that I usually do those is I start with the body. They have like this really big head, which is kind of funny because it's almost like, let's see, right there, the letter C. It's like a sack that kind of comes down, and then if you're doing it from the side, they have like this bump up here for where the eye goes, and then it goes into all of the tentacles. Right, you can make them swirly. Okay, so say I have those ones up there. You could also do ones on the other side that might be coming out like part of the body that we can't see, because they kind of like fan out on the bottom while they're moving across the floor, or especially when they're eating stuff. A lot of times when they move across the floor, they actually kind of like, no, they do fan out across the floor. When they swim through water, they lead with their head and kind of like squid do. Alright, so you got that big head, and then right in here, right, you could have it be like totally to the side and you could just see one eye, or you could have like a bump like the letter C over here with the other eye. And that is how I draw octopus. Right? And even though they have that like big ol' head, it's actually really interesting because octopus, like on the bottom of their body where it fans out, is this little like beak that they use to eat with. And as long as they can fit their beak through something, they can actually fit the rest of their body through something. So that's how you hear stories about a lot of octopus escaping from aquariums and stuff, is because they found like a vent that their beak could fit through, or like a pipe, or some kind of tiny little opening like this. But because their beak fit through it, they're able to like squish down the rest of their body and crawl on out. It's cool. I love octopus. I love animals. Okay. So, and then seaweed, pretty basic. I would just do like curvy, and then coming down on the other side, kind of like so, or almost like these tentacles coming down from our jellyfish. My toddler wants in. Okay, so I'm going to add some of these all around here, right? As they move towards the center, you want them to be smaller so it looks like they're moving further away. I'm going to add mine in. I'm going to pause and we'll come back and we will color. Alright, so I have completed my sea creatures. I did the octopus again because I thought that I like octopus a lot. I thought that part was kind of cool. You can leave it like that, or you can put little dots on its tentacles for the like suction. Did some fish, some jellyfish. I did a shark fin kind of disappearing off the side. I did some sharks going like above us. So those are a little bit different. You can see it's kind of like the shape of a fish. Oops. From the side, except for you see the fins coming down this way. Just kind of like a point for the tail, and then that frown with all those teeth and the nostrils. And then I added this part in here for like the belly. I did seaweed, a couple little seahorses. We have long noses, pot bellies, like spines that go along their back, and then their tails kind of curl around. And then I also did a little bit of coral, right? It's almost like tree branches, but really like bumpy and short and chunky. And then I added in dots to make it look more like coral. So there's mine as of now, and we're just going to color it in. So you could use crayons, colored pencils, whatever works best for you. If you have like really small details that are hard to color with crayons, you could always do a little bit of both, right? So you could color like small details with colored pencils and then switch over to the crayons for like the water. You can kind of combine them instead of sticking to just one or the other. So I think that's what I'll probably end up doing for like my seahorses and stuff. Alright, so I'm going to get this colored, and once we're done coloring, then we're all done. So I'm going to pause this so you don't have to sit here and boringly watch me color. And you can add in multiple colors too while you're going. Right, so like in this octopus, I did some purple and almost like a letter C or G around the head, down some of the tentacles, and then I also added in some greens and some pinks. I decided I didn't want my shark and my dolphin to be the same gray color, so I did just gray for my shark, and then my dolphin, I did some blue across the top and in the dorsal. Wait, no, I feel like that's the dorsal. In the little flappy thingies. In those things right there, the little fins. Alright, and then that way it kind of separated those two from each other. Okay? Or you could do just like all one color, like my jellyfish. I just did one color. Okay. So go ahead and we're going to work on coloring, and then we'll be right back. Alright guys, we have a guest star for just a minute. This is Finn. Hi. Okay, so I wanted to show you, I ended up realizing my toddler's favorite game is to sneak in and get a hold of my crayons and dump them everywhere. And then put them back in and dump them back out and put them back in, and I'm steadily losing colors. of crayons. So I decided to color with colored pencils, but I wanted to show you, if I can, that I chose certain parts of my octopus to be purple and orange, and then I'm going to go in with another color like blue or something, just to add in pops of color, especially because octopus can change their color to match their environment, kind of like chameleons. So it's fun to make them colorful. Alright, I'm going to pause again, keep coloring, and you do the same. Bye-bye, Finn. Alright, so I have colored, my octopus. I did like browns and pinks in my coral. You could do some oranges if you do coral. Reds and oranges in my jellyfish. I gave more of like a white belly with a little bit of blue in my sharks. Realized I didn't have a gray coloring pencil, so I found a gray crayon for the gray part of my sharks. And so now I'm going to color blue all around it. And if you're using colored pencils for this part, colored pencils would take a really long time when you're looking to like get to here. So what I would probably suggest is I would maybe switch over to like crayons for that, or you could also do something like oil pastels. Oil pastels are good, especially because they go on really thick. So I think I'm going to do that. Make sure if you have blue inside your sea creatures that you use a different kind of blue for your water. That way they don't match too much. So I'm going to try out some oil pastels for my water. We'll see how it looks. Alright, so I went ahead and finished coloring in my water with an oil pastel. I think I do like it a little bit better than the crayon, just because you can see it goes on much more bold and thick rather than having a lot of the white showing behind. Just kind of depends on how dark you want it to be. Having that darker blue did help a lot of the colors in my sea creatures to really pop out. And the other thing that's nice is that, if you do have those like areas where there's white, you can kind of smudge your oil pastel around and rub it in to help fill in those areas. Oh, I forgot there's tape there, that's why. But the other thing is that it is really messy. So, and it depends on whether or not your teacher wants you to do oil pastels. But just to show you, you can kind of mix and match your mediums, the things that you are doing art with. You don't always have to like stick to just one, right? And kind of like smudging this in and stuff for the water because it makes it look a little bit more watery too. So that's fun. The only downside I really see with using the oil pastel for this part is that it does smudge, so it can easily get into your animals, places where you don't want it to be. And because it was a little bit darker, it kind of covered up some of those lines that we did for the frame of the glass. But, not too bad. If you really wanted to, if you wanted those to really pop out, you could go back in with a black oil pastel at the end. But it is kind of nice that they're not super noticeable. It makes it feel like you can really see through that glass. Like if I were to take, let's see what it would look like. If I were to take a black oil pastel and go in, right, like if you wanted to touch up this part right here, I got some blue on that, or right here, right. The only thing with touching bring up those lines is that it's hard to use an oil pastel with a ruler, and it's hard to get clean lines, right? So that kind of brought that line back, but I think even without it, it looks good. Okay, so gotta do it on all sides now because otherwise it's gonna bother me. All right, so there is the aquarium. Lots of fun. Hope you guys like it. Make sure to send me some photos of your class's art because I would love to see it. And I'll see you guys again later. Happy drawing! Oh. There it is. It disappeared. All right. Bye-bye.